we've seen a rising China in the last, I guess, 40 years, but most recently in the last 10 years. And, you know, I know you guys know the history real well, but if we go back to, just start with Mao Zedong, when he claimed in 1949 the chairmanship of the Chinese Communist Party after they fought the Civil War and ran the KMT out, that formed Taiwan. And since then, he put a vision of 100 years of where China would be. It's estimated that under his authoritarian rule, 80 million Chinese died. And I think you guys were talking about something that I hear over and over again. It was one of the reasons I ran for Congress, a lack of vision, a lack of leadership for America. We sit up here and we squabble over social issues, we squabble over, you know, border security, we squabble over these things, but you don't hear one politician, one leader of this country of where America is going to be 100 years from now. And I'm guilty of that myself. And so we need to raise our bar. You were talking about education. Have we not dumped a lot of money into education? But we're not going in a direction. We just throw money into it without a vision. And until we have a vision of this country, we're going to have our clocks cleaned, as we see by China. China entered into the modern world in the 70s. And since that time, since Mao Zedong, they're 70 years into the 100-year plan. And they have done remarkable. We should be envious. And I applaud them for their success, and I want them to be successful, but not at the expense of us or other nations. Competition is good, but not to the point where it inflicts damage on another economy, another way of life. And then we have Deng Xiaoping in the 80s said, bide your time, hide your strength, and they did. They cornered the rare earth metals market in the world. And I'm sure you guys are aware our F-35s, 10% of the weight is rare earth metals. 90% of that comes directly from China. The other 10% come from countries that get it from China. Does anybody see a problem here? And now we have Xi Jinping, who has declared himself, or voted in fair elections, I'm sure, in the Emperor for Life for China. In the 17th Chinese Communist Party Congress in October of 2017, he said, the era of China has arrived. No longer will China be made to swallow their interests around the world. It's time for China to take the world center stage. We've seen what they've done in the South China Sea. When Xi Jinping was here in the Rose Garden with President Obama, said we will not militarize those islands, yet today they have airstrips, military barracks, military offensive and defensive weapons, and radar systems. And they do have a lighthouse, they claim, that is for peaceful navigational purposes. We see them making claims to the Arctic Circle. And the international standard, as it was in the South China Sea, that is, if you don't have land touching those areas, you don't have any claim to it. China was sued by the Philippines and lost that lawsuit, yet they continue to build and militarize these islands. They're going to do the same in the Arctic. There's a saying, I don't know who gets credit for it, but it says, if you want to know the past, look at your present. If you want to know the future, look at your present activity. I think it's very clear what China's doing. You know, I wish we could say, man, they're great players. We want to invite them over for lunch and dinner and let our kids play with them. But we see them infiltrating our universities. They steal intellectual property from corn seeds to computer technology. Huawei came to my university and wanted to fund 100% a cybersecurity program, which we nixed and said, I don't believe so. And this is something, you know, I wish we could be we're already naive, but not stupid. You know, they have an aggressive path forward, and their goal is to build 5 new deep water aircraft carriers by 2030, and I bet they do. Yet we have fed this monster, I don't want to call him an enemy, we have fed this economy by allowing our manufacturers to go over there, and it's time for America to wake up. We need to have a policy called the ABC policy, anywhere but China for manufacturing. Our manufacturers need to get out of China and go anywhere but China. We don't want a head-on conflict with China. Nobody wants that in the world. And so the only way we can counter that is economically. And if we starve the economic engine, Xi Jinping will have to turn and adapt to the policies in the world. Am I wrong in that?